Planars can be very confusing, especially with all the new graphs looking the same these days, which is why I made this guide to help you guys out, and more specifically to see where the newer sets like the F1 Pro falls into. TLDR, as of now, they can be grouped into 4 categories. Number 1, bright and energetic. This includes sets like the original S12 and the 7Hz Dioko, with all of them having a lot of treble and upper mid emphasis, so if you're a treble head, you're gonna enjoy those ones very much. Second, there's the neutral but bright leaning category, so sets like the HBB Heyday has a leaner bass boost, but also isn't too bright in context to the other planars. Then number 3, you have the neutral mid-centric sets like the P1 Max and the original nice HACK F1 red nozzles. They're the least bright and most tame, and I guess easy on the ears out of all the planars. And lastly, we have the all-rounders, so these are what I would consider a slight V-shape in both the low end and the treble without barging into treble head territory, so think S12 Pro and the original Woo. Now, with most of these planars, you will experience quote-unquote planar timbre, a light or sizzly effect in the treble and the upper mid regions to certain degrees depending on the tuning, oftentimes both light and sizzly. The only set that didn't have this issue was the Lecture S15, although that is over $300, so not quite in the same price category. But the closest to the S15 in terms of just timbre would be the P1 Max and the HIDISZ MP145. Well, before they silently retuned the 145, that is. For those out of the loop, recently there's this whole ordeal around whether or not the MP145 has been silently retuned just like the KZ IEMs, or maybe just very bad QC. According to HIDISZ, they say that a 2 to 4 dB standard is, okay in Sci-Fi. I mean, alright buddy. But based off Mike's video, it seemed like the quote-unquote retuned version sounds very different, understandably so. I mean, they look like 2 different IEMs on the graph, so I'm not too sure where the MP5 stand as of now until we get more units to graph and to compare. But if it is retuned, then the newer batch does seem more neutral and more similar to the HBB Heyday, so it would be more like in that category. Yeah, just a heads up if you're looking to buy an MP145 right now. Now, as for the newer IEMs like the F1 Pro, the T10, and the KLANAR, they all fall into the slight V-shape all-rounder category. Not as bright as the OG S12, but they are definitely mid-volume sets for most categories. Please don't blast these. At mid-volume, my favorite out of the 3 would be the F1 Pro. It sounds the cleanest and airiest because of the the boosted upper mids, the boosted treble, and the decreased sub bass, which gives the vocals more clarity, a little bit more open. But again, the difference isn't huge. It's more like down to unit variance than anything. I mean, just look at the graph, they basically all look the same. The T10 and the KLANAR sound again very similar, basically same, my units at least. So I would just grab the T10 over the KLANAR because it is cheaper. And T10 versus F1 Pro wise, the T10 is slightly less sharp, less light, scales a little bit better, has a deeper sub bass rumble, more sub bass, although neither are EA 500 LM levels of bass slam and texture, but vocals are just more enjoyable and a little bit more open on the F1 Pro versus the T10. And since neither of them scale very well, you can make the vocals clearer on the T10 by just like turning up the volume, since it's gonna get too fatiguing and a little bit too sharp. I found tracks with a lot of cymbals or electronic elements to be too much at times on both the T10 and the F1 Pro, like Model and Butterfly. They're too sizzly and energetic like most of the planars, which is why you can't really listen past mid volume and on like any of the planars, aside from maybe like the S15, the P1 Max, and the pre-retuned MP145. But it doesn't mean they're bad or anything, just don't blast them. The F1 Pro actually sounds very nice on slower tracks. For example, Called You Again, where the extra energy and air really helps open up the song and adds that extra sparkle to liven things up. The elevated air brings like a sweetness to the female vocals with indie and alternative stuff, like even like soft, or sorry, not soft, slow rock, almost like the tracks are brushed over with like a thin layer of like gold color. However, they can be too light on busier pop and rock tracks. It get a little bit hard to pick out the vocals sometimes, and this is similar with male vocals as well. There's just not that much weight or huskiness behind them on both the T10, F1 Pro, or like the KLANARs, or like any of the planar IEMs really. In other words, using the singing analogy, all 3 planars, the KLANAR, T10, F1 Pro, have a good amount of head voice, with the falsetto being more prominent, and this focus on the air or the falsetto combined with the weaker chest voice or like the bass texture, I guess, makes vocals feel lighter. They're more open but not as powerful, not as forward, and not as full sounding or natural. Now, in terms of resolution, layering, and detail retrieval, they're all around the same. They use pretty much the same driver, whether it's a 14.5mm or 14.2mm variant, with like the main differences being in the tuning and how that alters the sharpness of the notes and how the notes transients are like perceived, or just how much treble detail is like pushed out. If you want the most treble detail, the original S12 still has the most. It's the sparkliest. It has like the most elevated boosted upper mids in the treble region, sharpest in its transients. But honestly, the difference is there, but it's not huge. I personally base my decision off the tuning more than the technical aspects. For example, if I want a cleaner but still bright leaning sound, then the HBB Heyday is still great, looks dope as well, just enough energy without just being, you know, too much and overbearing. And if I wanted more bass and engagement or more of a V-shaped sound, I would grab the Melody, as it has the most low-end energy without being bloated or congested. The bass is very fast in attack and the decay. It's slightly sharp, but you know, not as energetic in the upper mids and treble versus some of the other stuff. And if you told me, no Jay, I don't want those bright sets, give me something smoother, I would recommend the P1 Max or the original nice HCK F1s with the red nozzle, which is like super neutral sets with a nice balanced sound, pretty much like a straight line on the red nozzles for the F1s. Then for all-rounders, I would have recommended the MP145 before, but with the retune and the whole QC fiasco, that's now in the air until we get further confirmations. So I would just grab the T10 for now because it's the best value, you know, very similar sound and tech as the others, but cheaper. You know, you can mess around with the tips and it might be even better. So all of them, just like, they all work really well. They're like all very similar. The F1 Pro, the KLANAR, the S12 Pro, the OG Woo, they're all very similar. I like the OG Woo the best after the MP145, but you know, just get which one is the cheapest, or if money isn't an issue, go for whichever design and accessories you like the most. Since again, the difference is very small. I mean, you can argue that the vocals are a little bit cleaner on the F1 Pros, or you know, there's more sub bass on some of the other sets, but it's more down to unit variations than anything. So I'm pretty sure your tips can make a bigger difference. Just don't lose sleep over deciding which one. All in all, this is giving me heavy budget Harman clone vibes all over again, you know, like way back in 2022 where all the budget sets are just like Harman clones. I really hope that isn't the trend moving forward, you know. I hope we get like different tunings. That would be nice. As for my personal favorite, it would still be the P1 Max before the S15. It's just the smoothest and least like planar. I'm not the biggest fan when it comes to bright sets, which is why I love the Pandas. They scale extremely well, beautiful mid-range, not as sharp in the resolution as the others, but like more balanced. And I would take dynamics and tonality over sizzle and, you know, quote unquote detail any day of the week. But yeah, I hope this guide was helpful. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see everyone in the next one.